This conference will now be recorded.
This is PAR16's 2019 facility plan meeting with the State Construction Department, and we'll introduce ourselves first.
Amber Leach with planning. The purpose that I work with is all the facility plans, getting the documents prepared, as well as working with the district in preparation for today's meeting.
Thank you. Troy Decker, planning. My role here is quality control to make sure that we abide by all state statutes, rules, and regs in the facility planning process to gather the necessary information that is compiled, and then we use to consider recommendations to the schools facilities commission. And then also we're able to, off these facility plans, to send reports and stuff to the select committee, joint appropriations committee. And then if anyone likes, for instance, a legislator or a governor's office wants to look at a facility plan, we are able to give them this summation of the facility plan for your school district in order for them to have a quick understanding of the issues within your district.
I'm Charlie Kaufman, planning as well. My primary role is data analysis for the department, do all the research and provide reports for whatever legislative body needs them.
Paul Severson, I provide leadership and assistance to the project management team for the school facilities group. Today I'll be assisting a new project manager, and I'll allow him to introduce himself here in just a moment. But I will be working along with Steve as he develops his skills in the project management for school districts in the northwest corner of the state.
And I'm Steve McDonald. I'm the new regional project manager for the northwest part of the state. It was nice to stop through last week and get to meet a couple of you face to face anyways, and I look forward to working with you guys.
Go ahead, school district.
All right, so here in our room, I'm Shane Ogden, superintendent of Park School District 16. We have, I'll let them introduce themselves, I guess.
Tracy Thomas, business manager.
Brian Schaefer, maintenance director.
All right, welcome this morning. I'm going to go ahead, and sometimes we have streaming difficulties. Oops, which one is it? That's not that one. I'm going to go ahead and turn off our video camera now that we've introduced ourselves, and we'll roll on. You can see the screen okay?
Yes.
Yes,
Wonderful.
we can.
Okay. The other person we're missing that can't join us is Brandon Finney. He's basically administrator of overall planning and finance, and he does a great job with the legislature and basically the financial side of preparing information for our commission and getting ready for legislative requests for appropriations. So with that, we'll move on. Charlie here has just put on a Google Earth image of Meeteetse and the fine area that encompasses your school property. So we thank you for him. I did notice this year that we've got the teacherage on Nevada Street identified.
Then there's a couple others. I just didn't do that, and I just did the main property at this point. And
okay.
That was close enough to be within the shots. So.
And I think last year, didn't they purchase some property for VOCAD or?
So it's a lease for the FFA,
okay.
And that is not included in this picture at the moment.
Okay. So as we go down through this, the first part is just verification of data, make sure that we're accurate as possible, because what it does is we want to make sure that you get the appropriate amount through WDE on the block grant. And so you guys have verified acreages, and we do appreciate that because that has to do with groundskeepers allowances. So we have that verified. District, on things like this, we're just going to push right through. If you have anything to say, great. If not, we'll just kind of do the checkoff type of stuff.
That sounds great.
Okay. Land leases, these are important just for us to keep track by state statute. We have those accounted for, and so our AIM database is updated for all land issues. Property profiles, these are your actual buildings. You guys have reviewed those, verify accuracy. It has to do with your major maintenance payments. and your operations and maintenance payments through the block grant. So these are important numbers, and I think we have our allowables up to date and ready to go. Okay. And then right here, there's no building leases for district to report, so we don't have to worry about that. There's no verification there. You've also reviewed enhancements and verify accuracy. These are things that obviously we need to report each year to the legislature, so we appreciate you looking at that as well. Our database is updated. So that takes care of all those database issues that we do on a yearly basis. All right, so let's start the next one with the capital project.
He had a question.
Oh, did you have a question there?
So we do have, we have put on that lease that we have for the ag barn. The ag barn is now completed and we have occupancy. We have not yet gone through submitting that to the department, but we are in the process of that, and the board will sign those appropriate documents this coming week.
And it was done with school district funds.
And that was a lease for that property, you said?
So the property is leased, but they built the barn on that property.
Yeah, I think the lease has been accounted for. It's just the property itself, or the building itself.
So we're looking at the actual property profile itself.
Yes, the actual property.
That we're going to enter into the database.
Correct. We have to enter it
in. We should say will be added, right?
Correct. Will be added to the database.
Once, what happens again at the district side? Just approval by the
So,
school?
yeah, so we will have the forms that we need to submit to the department. We will have those approved by the school board this coming week, and then we will submit that and hopefully be on the March agenda for that to be added.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, down to appropriations. Can everybody see that? Is that wide, large enough?
Sure, absolutely. So,
okay, let's read this. This is the district's notes. This was addressed last year in the annual review. There was work to be redone, finished concerning heating units that were undersized within the renovation area. We were informed, this is the district talking, that someone from the department needed to determine whose liability it was. So this has to do with you guys specifically. We have not heard back from this issue. The district has paid the invoice to Basin Mechanical out of the capital projects depreciation reserve. We are waiting for reimbursement from the department. So what we did, project managers, and this was obviously John Rexus's district. So from last year's facility plan, what I did was I went back in and I actually did, number one is Amber took from last year's and just some notes here that talked about this exact same project and what we talked about in a summary version. Then what I did is I went back to last year's recorded video.
Okay.
And basically I went and it was pretty close, not 100%, pretty close to what was said. So let me read what was discussed last year so we kind of know what's going on. There was an issue that the contractor had to come back and fix just this past year. This is Shane or Ryan. I couldn't tell Shane or Ryan which of you was speaking at the moment, but I think it's around $1,400. We just need to push that paperwork through. Brandon, the last invoice pretty much, or is it a warranty issue? Tracy, no, I don't believe so. I have the invoice and will need to submit it. Brandon, okay. John Rexus, so just to shed a little light on this, but it's been a while since I've talked to Jay Curtis about it, and if you don't know, the past superintendent had left, right? And so there was also change of leadership within the district in the midst of all this. So and he says, I talked to Jay Curtis about this, but there was an issue that wasn't wasn't a warranty issue where some additional scope needed to be done, and that's why Jay didn't want to close out. I can't remember exactly. I know we discussed it, but it's been about 6 or 7 months since we talked about it. Brandon, so you have this is the balance of what's left in the account, right? 3,859.85. John, so I'll have to get into some more details about that with the district on what would be required. We have a process of change orders, and that is something we will have to do. Tracy, so do I understand that we need to wait for the change order to submit the last invoice? Is that what you just said? John, I can't hear you. I can't hear her. And then Brandon repeats it. Do you need to wait for the change order to submit the last invoice? John, yes, because right now that is showing up on the contingency line, and there's been a policy shift in regards to where those change orders were changed to. So I'll need to do an authorization letter to move that contingency fund to the construction line. Tracy, okay. Brandon, recommend that SED wait for the district to submit this before reverting funds. Hard to hear and he went on, but I couldn't quite hear everything he said. And then we have one last statement here too. John says, I think I would like to confirm, so this is him working with the district and the architect. I'd like to confirm that it was actually an error in the engineering because there are some things associated with remodels that are unknowns. In layman's eyes, it could be construed as an error, but I'm not entirely sure that that was the case. It might have been that it was an unforeseen condition that required a different scope of services. So I don't know if that is the case, but I would like to have the opportunity to dig into that a little bit before we say that as a matter of public record. And I said, okay. That help you guys give context?
Okay.
So far, so good?
So good.
So then I went on and I talked to John Rexis. Okay, so John, here's our conversation last year here with the district. What did you do between then and now? I'm talking with John Rexis, the past SFD PM. He did receive information from the district and contacted the architect several times, but was unable to determine that it was an errors and omissions issue. According to the district's notes above, the district paid additional money prior to an approved change order.
Right.
So that's where we are at present. Tracy, Shane, or anybody else, Ryan, do you guys have anything else to add to this before I get the PM's insight on our position on that remaining funds? Anything else you guys want to ask or say or comment on?
I think that sums up the conversation that happened. What the issue was with the remodel, they took out large capacity heaters from our bathrooms and replaced them with very small, inadequate ones, and then we had freezing pipes. So that's why they had to come in and bump that back up to an appropriate level to have the heaters within those areas capable of keeping the area warm enough for those lines not to freeze.
Okay. So was a change order processed for this work with the contractor? And usually that would have been with the architect writing a request for proposal, change order, and then it would have been presented to us for consideration. And if executed, then we would have put funds towards that. So what I'm not hearing was change order processed.
Ryan and I were not here, so we can't speak to that. Tracy has a note, and it looks like our communication with our architect occurred, but we don't have any record of a change order or anything that the architect processed for us.
Okay.
It just said, there's an email from Plan 1, Ron, that he'll be coming down for a visit, but I don't think that has ever happened.
Okay. Well, one of the things that we need when we process appropriations or make available to you funds, we either have to have a change order or a contract. So in this case, I'm assuming there was a contract, so we need a change order. And we don't generate that change order. Generally, the school district doesn't generate that change order. It's generated by the architect, and it is the costs associated with it are provided by the contractor. So without those documents, we don't have anything to process. So we basically need those documents so that we can go through the process of appropriating funds, then would be available for you to bill against in AIM. But again, that's not something that we implement, that process. We react to it, but we don't implement it.
So I just want to clearly understand. Hey guys, when I type here, if you see anything I type that you don't agree with, just let me know, or corrections or anything like that. So you can see what the district's response was. That makes sense. A change, and I've just said a change order needs to be generated by the architect based on an invoice by the contractor, right? Provided by the contractor.
Correct.
Okay, so let's see, provided. Oops. Provided by the contractor. The SCD is willing to process a change order. Is that right?
Correct.
Process a change order if received, right?
Right.
Something like that. Okay. So it sounds to me like the ball's in. I mean, does the PM contact the architect? The district contact the architect?
The district contacts the architect. We have oversight. We don't have any direct involvement with the making of requests. That is definitely in the school district. You are the owner. You are the client. You are contracted to that architect. We're just a third party.
Okay, we will contact our former architect.
Okay.
Okay, and then again, it looks like we have what did we say, 3,000 something?
It's 3859.85.
85, right? So we if it qualifies, right, the SCD could pay up to that amount.
Correct.
Okay.
And from what I'm reading from the narrative that Troy went through, I don't anticipate there would be any reason we would not be able to fund that. It just appears that we need the documentation so we can proceed with what we can do to assist you.
Okay, so we are not, right?
Yep.
So we're going to hold funds will be held until this issue is resolved.
Right. Yeah. We would have no reason to revert these funds if we know there's a pending issue.
District, anything else you want to say? You're going to take the bull by the horns?
Yep, we will work on that. Thank you.
Excellent.
Okay, thanks. And let's go ahead and hopefully we don't go another year here. You guys get it all done, get it, and we'll clear out this thing. Do you, Tracy, do you recall the amount that you paid?
It was $1,400.
Okay, good. All right. So sounds to me like it can be covered if approved through a change order.
Right.
They can make contract change or whatever you need to do and move on. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Anything else on that? Okay, let's go. Okay, thank you. Let's go down to security next.
We've got a little bit of a conversation here we'd like to have with you, and this has been going on for a few years now, and we had the same conversation last year, and I do understand that many of you may not have been in attendance to this meeting, but there appears it's a combination of there's some misunderstandings, and we're trying desperately to get a general understanding of all districts. Funds have been allocated by our legislature for security. Now, we know there's misunderstanding of that because we've read interviews in the paper of superintendents saying, well, we never got any money. Well, that's not true because we know that every district except for one was appropriated funds. So every district has been given the opportunity to have access to funds for security. And this goes way back to 2014 when initially the legislature set aside $9 million. The problem that we had with that $9 million is the governor was not pleased with the methodology that was set up to distribute those funds. So in 2015, the legislature then clarified how those funds were going to be distributed. So since 2015, the dollars have been made available, and there was an assessment done of all facilities across the state. So your district, and they do have up on the screen here where you can see it, the funds that were made available for you, and those funds were specifically made for the assessment shortfalls in your security, and you can see the amounts there that were done. So far, you have not encumbered any of those dollars to do any of the security work that assessment identified. So what we are attempting to do is to encourage you to proceed with this work. We do not desire to revert these funds, but I'm afraid if they sit too long, the legislature may ask us to do that. So what you have is an opportunity here, and what we would like you to do is to pursue that opportunity and utilize the funds in the ways that were identified in the assessment. Now, in addition to these funds, the legislature for 2 biennia now have made available funds for 10% of your major maintenance that can also go towards security items. Now, the difference between this major maintenance fund and regular major maintenance funds is regular major maintenance funds cannot be used to put in some new elements into your facilities. Now, these 10% funds are not restricted in that way. So you can use the $35,000 that Troy just circled there to put towards security elements. Now, the legislation was not as direct as to what those they intended for you to spend, but in our security standards for the state, we will recognize any of those elements that are in there and allow you to use those funds towards them. And Troy has gone back to the list of the 20 elements that funding is available that you can spend these funds on. So if you analyze your security and your assessment, if you don't know, is available to you, you can get to it through AIM. If you need any assistance getting to that assessment so you can see exactly what the assessor's comments and remarks were in regard to what the deficiencies were that you have in your district, we can assist you to understand what those are. So you have available to you both the capital construction funds and 10% monies from 2 biennial appropriations that you can put towards these elements. So again, we're happy to work with you. We'd like you to implement as much of these security measures as you determine are necessary for your district, and we're here ready to help you. Now, one of the things that I do warn you about is we've gotten 2 biennial appropriations for 10% security. What we've heard from the legislature is they don't intend to do that again, and we can't predict whether they will or won't. I would just suggest that you don't inadvertently overexpend these dollars, because the fact that there may not be additional security funds would mean that you would have to reimburse the account from other sources. So if you're going to pursue security projects, look carefully in AIM on what your balances are, and don't overexpend would be my recommendation to you. Our project manager can work with you to help you work through this process. And each security request we get through 10% major maintenance, we confirm that the budget that you've established does not exceed the funds that you have available to you. So with that kind of a big, broad picture, I guess I'm asking, is there anything that you can think of at this point that we can assist you with? Steve will be coming up and visiting you directly and talking about this, whether you have any ideas. But is there anything at this point that you can think of that you'd like to talk about in association with security funding?
I don't think so. I think we understand it. You know, recognizing how small we are and what those amounts are. When we visit with law enforcement and with other professionals that come in, certainly the things that we want to do to secure our building is going to exceed that amount. So that's what we have to figure out, how we would provide for that, because it is going to require construction of a new wall in order to secure our cafeteria, which is our most vulnerable point of our building.
Okay.
And so that is our greatest priority, is creating a secured vestibule, because right now anybody who walks into the building before they hit the office that locks down everything else, they have access to our cafeteria.
Right.
And for general operations, it can't just be a flat wall, because we have to have access for our kids to actually get to the cafeteria. So that's why it's not just the simple fact of putting up a brick wall that would meet that need. It's going to have doors in it and stuff like that.
Okay. Well, the legislature in their current session that is underway right now is considering an additional capital construction amount of $4.9 million that would be distributed to all the districts. I can imagine that your amount would be somewhere in line with what you saw in the 2014 amount in the $11,000 range, but it's essentially half of that. So you could anticipate that there may be, depending on where the legislature goes with it, additional capital funds. Now, another one of the things that we have also requested is that we give you greater flexibility in where you put those funds in the future. We have yet to see how the legislature is going to respond to that. Then that would give you the flexibility to put the funds towards any particular item that you select that is in your assessment. You can't pick an item that you create the project. It has to be identified in your assessment. And that's something that we would anticipate, but by the end of March, we would understand whether or not that kind of flexibility is going to be offered to you and whether additional funds will be made available.
Okay, well, thank you. If no other comments, we'll move on. And again, I just prepared some notes ahead of time. I review these prior to the meeting after you guys are done with your notes, so I think we've got it captured pretty well. Capacity, you guys are 27%, almost 28%. These are just formulaic driven. Let me go to, I actually brought up a spreadsheet. Formulaic driven enrollment projections, but how these work, and it's always nice to explain to districts. Obviously, here's your kindergarten enrollment over the last 10 years, and we go 10 years of trailing data, and then we project out. And so some years, I bet that's a little scary when you get 2 students in kindergarten. It's a little tough, but at any rate, your average right now looks like about 7 each year in the last 10 years. When you go down here and you look at your K-12, you guys are at 107. You were 109 4 years ago, but in the last 10 years, you guys have pretty well averaged 116. So it looks like you're a stable community. You're not going up much. You're not going down much. It's probably more due to birth rate, perhaps, of the people within your community rather than people leaving or going, but it can be a combination thereof. For you guys, it's kind of interesting because when you go from kindergarten over the last 10 years, and how these work is it's an average of survival rate. So like kindergarten in 2008 went to first grade in 2009, second grade, third grade. That's how these stair step down. And you can wait, you see you went from 9 to 7 students, 9 to 10, 8 to 11, 8 to 8, 4 to 5, 6 to 7, 7 to 13. That's, I wonder if a large family moved in or large families. But at any rate, that's what it is. It takes those averages and pushes it out. So from kindergarten to first grade, over the last 10 years, you guys have actually have 126% survival rate, which means you're picking up students on a regular basis between kindergarten and first grade. Just out of curiosity, and that's a rare, we do have this happening in the state from kindergarten to first. But this is and I know that we're dealing with smaller numbers, but this is kind of a rare number. Do you guys have any idea why you're picking up students from kindergarten to first grade by any chance?
No, not specifically, but certainly we do have families that return to Meeteetse. And I think one element that we do hear from parents that are returning was they grew up here, they love the education that they got in Meeteetse, and they want their kids to experience that. So I could see that they could be moving back when their kids are starting to approach that first grade year versus kindergarten.
Okay. And then you can tell second, third. So really from first grade through third, you guys are, on average, are gaining students. You get to fourth, fifth, and sixth, you're actually losing students. And so don't know what that's about. But then you get to seventh, eighth, and ninth. For the most part, you guys are gaining some students in seventh grade. And I don't know if they're coming out of Cody and just looking for opportunities for greater participation in sports or whatever, but you do have that early junior high entry where you're picking up students during that time. And then you've got your sophomore and junior years, you're losing some students. This is typical across the state your sophomore year, typical across state. Then you guys regain them in junior, senior year. So overall, you guys actually, as your students come in, your district actually, your student numbers grow as the students move through the grade levels. So you've got some migration into your district, and there must be something that people are looking for. Maybe it's in economic opportunities, but I question that in Meeteetse, Wyoming. And then don't be concerned about this because we know that, again, it's just on numerical values, but you guys, I'm sure you're pretty stable. All right, any questions on the capacity?
Nope, thank you.
You're welcome. Just want to make sure you understood how that worked. All it is a tool for the state of Wyoming to know, are you growing, not growing, where are you at? You guys are fairly stable and a little bit of growth. Okay, this is a statewide capacity list. Charlie?
Yes. So every year with the releasing of the enrollments from WDE, we update our statewide capacity list. And this year we just have, obviously there's been a couple of changes within the SFC's methodology. Last year the methodology reflected that in grades K through 3 they did have a restricted capacity of 25. That has been moved down to 16. As of September, the SFC moved it back to 16. And so that did make quite a bit of difference in the capacity calculations of several schools and districts at that point. And you'll see the high waters right now, Afton, Osmond, and Lincoln 2, Natrona, and then Laramie 1, obviously with the elementary and high school, and then Rock Springs there are all above 100% and above at this point. Per our rules and regulations, we classify all capacity needs by high capacity, medium, and low capacities. Low is just anywhere between 90 and 95%, medium 95 and 100, and obviously high above 100%.
So I just put here, the district has adequate space to educate its enrolled students. Charter school, there is no charter school, so we're good there. Condition, are you guys pretty well familiar with condition scores and what they mean? Would it be advantageous for me to explain that, or do you understand the SCI scores?
I think we're good on understanding that.
Perfect. We'll go down through there then. Here's the statewide list. It's just the top 30 or so buildings in the state that have the highest condition needs and the greatest deferred maintenance. Here's the support facilities that go behind that. And we do not have the PAR16 in there. So you guys, Your buildings are really in really good shape. Your worst one is a 0.3 for the voc ed, but you've got some really nice buildings for the most part. So I just said the district is continuing maintenance available, its buildings with available major maintenance funds, which I think is true. But let's talk about major maintenance specifically. One of the things we do is update our database, make sure our work statuses are correct, expire or not terminate, but finish out and close out projects that through the 680. So we appreciate, Tracy, you sending that in, and then updating the statuses of each work order so that our database is kept up to date. PM's reviewed all submitted major maintenance work orders. We appreciate that. We were just talking about major maintenance. This is based on your 680 report, and you do have some. You do have total expenditures from last year, 57,000, and then this gives a balance of 10% monies in security, which we already talked about. You have 35,000 left that you can spend in there. You have 42,000 of the 10% money for enhancements and things that it has to qualify for the definition of major maintenance, but it's on buildings that are not qualifying for regular major maintenance, because such as teacherages and other buildings. If you have an enhancement or a surplus building, which we're going to talk about in just a moment, then the thing that we want to make sure, and I don't know if you guys are planning on spending your 10% monies for out of your 8% or 10%, but these two balances here are pretty well, they were appropriated in two different sessions. But the 8% was simply a percentage of total major maintenance that you were allowed to spend on enhancements or surplus buildings. The next year or next biennium, they came in and changed the state statute to 10%. And so these two added up equal your, whatever that is, $53,000. But when you go, Tracy or Shane or whoever spends money, if you go to spend your 10% monies, please spend your 8% first. And let's allow us, these are like 12 years old now or something like that. Mm-hmm. So if you can allow us, if you do decide to spend your 10%, please spend your 8% first so we can kind of clear these out and get them off our books. And again, it's the same category as your 10% enhancement monies. Does that make sense?
Yes.
It sure does.
It does.
Thank you. All right, we just like to put in last year's priorities. We used to have a bar graphs. I'm still whining and crying with my staff over that one because I like bar graphs. But your highest expenditure last year was 21,000 communications security. Be honest with you, almost every school district we've talked to so far, which isn't a lot, but they're all. This is usually at the highest part of their awareness around the state. Obviously, for safety and security is high, so districts are spending money in that area. So we appreciate that. Gymnasium, and then it just works down to your priorities. And then, but building by building, it just shows what your priorities were for your two buildings there. We don't need to say anything. What we do is just try to capture something historical. So again, if a legislator, governor's office asks for information, they've got some context to see what your priorities were last year. And then down here, your low condition scores are important, obviously. 2 mean poor. That means you have 25 to 50% deficiency within those systems. And then you have, kind of expand that a little, and then you have kind of have 4 completed. You've got some information here that just says we do have a plan to address our low condition scores. The reasons this is important, because every year we get legislators asking us, are these people addressing their low condition scores? Obviously you are, and we do appreciate that. At least you have a plan and are addressing it over time as you see best. And then anything else you guys want to say on your major maintenance priorities, past, present, or future, before we move on to the next assessment to give you a little information on that?
That's why we didn't do something.
You know what? I guess some of the things that, again, I wasn't here as they came in and did that review way back when, but in talking with Jay, we do have in our plan to repair the roof over our vocational building, the old vocational building, using that 10% funds. Some of these items that are marked 2 within there, would be pointless to accomplish without replacing that dilapidated roof. And in talking with Jay, when they came out and did that, it was snow packed and nobody crawled up to actually look at the roof to actually see how bad it was when they came in to do that. I'm sure if they were to come back and look at that, you know, I think when this last visit that you guys had, you saw how bad that roof really is. And so that is a priority for us, that it wouldn't make sense to go in and do any ceiling finishes in a roof that leaks.
Okay, I understand that. Okay, and that's this building right here, right?
Correct.
Yeah, right. So what happened, just so you know, Steve, what happened was they got a major capital project right here, and they added on, and remodeled, and did their thing. And this included voc ed space for the capital project, but the district chose to keep this building.
Yeah, and I watched a little bit of last year's facility plan meeting, so I'm aware of that. And I think they're wanting to use some of that 10% money to do that roof there. We took a look at it last week, and
Wonderful.
Is that whole building or surrounding that all enhancement there, or is it just that piece of it?
Just that, and it's a freestanding building.
It is. Oh, what was the white that was adjacent to it?
that's the pool, I think.
Oh, you mean to the east here?
No, right.
Oh, I don't know.
Sorry, that's hard to say what that is.
Here, let's just get in there.
It is a portion of the building that has a different roof structure.
Oh, okay.
So this was the shop. The shop was to the what? To the north, to the south.
Correct.
And then you had some classrooms or rooms that surround it.
Classrooms, bathroom.
Yeah.
But only that shop space is enhancement. The rest of it is not.
That whole building,
The whole
including
building.
the classroom spaces.
Okay, got
Yeah.
it. Thank you.
Okay. Good questions. So it makes it a lot easier on us when it's a freestanding, right? And on the district, they know exactly where the money needs to go and stuff like that. You know, every once in a while we have a district say, I wish we wouldn't have done that, but you're where you are, and it's your responsibility from this point forward. And a decision was made by a school board, and I don't think you guys are arguing that at all. Just an awareness that sometimes it puts and not to dog a previous school board at all or administration, but decisions are made, and then those decisions are felt in the long term, and realities are the reality is they have financial responsibility for the building.
Yep.
Good or bad down the road. Okay, thank you, school district. Upcoming statewide condition assessment. State statute requires us to do this every 4 years. The reason we put this on here is because we want you to be aware that it's coming. In September, we'll go ahead and develop our scope of work, we'll choose and award a contract by January, give or take. In February, we'll have a kickoff meeting with whoever does the next assessment statewide. Basically, we'll go through a whole process of them calibrating their assessors. And then this is really an important one for you, school district, and we hold this in Casper. And it may not be exactly on April 1st, but sometime during April of next year, not this year, we will provide district training and SCD training for our staff on the assessment tool. So it's really important for you guys to understand what we're doing, or what the third-party consultant is doing, how they're doing it, what the tool is, and the importance of your participation, because we want these to be as accurate as possible, just like that roof. They couldn't climb up on the roof, but whoever took them around, if they could say, hey, listen, there are some issues up here. I know you can't climb up on the roof, but here's the condition of it, and to really help them get as accurate assessments as possible. So that's so it's really important for someone from the school district to attend this. It's free. It's like for 4 hours and a morning, or maybe we'll go from like probably we'll do like a 10 in the morning, have a lunch, and then go to 2, and the people go, or something like that. They'll come through, they'll do their assessments, we'll get final data in October of 2020, we'll get it uploaded in our database, and then we'll capture all the updated information with regard to whatever you've done with your the natural digression of your building, as well as the projects that you've done on them, to measure the impact of those projects and major maintenance and capital and stuff like that. Any questions on that?
No, that sounds great. Thank you.
Okay, component projects, I do not recall, I do not believe you guys submitted, but I'm sure you're familiar with, we do a webinar every year or every 2 years. We're now doing component projects. The definition of component project is basically to help supplement major maintenance that may not be adequate. But these are for, these would not be qualified for an enhanced building or a surplus building, I should say. So, but any of your other buildings that are actually on the inventory that the state does have responsibility, you can ask for component funds. And we have a whole process that takes about 11 months to go through for you guys to submit. And this is this year's list. And you can see everywhere from roofs to HVAC. HVAC, roofs are a common thing we get each year. What else is in here? Fire alarm system, sewer line. Sometimes these sewer lines are under slab. I don't know what you call them, down the halls. It costs a lot of money to upgrade a sewer line underneath the floor of a school.
Right. Yeah. Because not a lot of schools in Wyoming were built with accessible spaces underneath their floor. So yes, the repairs sometimes can be quite disruptive to your school.
So with that then, and roofs are pretty common because they're so expensive, even for a small district, of course. But our director works with the governor's office and with the leaders in the Senate and the House or on committees to kind of determine what balance or what we're going to ask for in different categories of a budget. And then we're told basically what to do there. For the most part, make recommendations that go back to the legislature eventually and through our commission. But if they say, hey, you can ask up to 10 million on component projects, and we could go down, you can see a cumulative. Each of these projects, or a lot of them, are in the millions. And then we have cumulative, so we could actually go down to number 4 and ask clear through number 4. That's 6.6 million. If they said 15 million, we could go through that down through number 7 and so on. So this is pending commission consideration in February, that they'll hopefully approve this list, and then we'll be ready for the appropriation requests in the spring. Okay, we talked about the vocation building. We all understand what it is. I did say we're encouraging to spend the remaining 8%. We've talked about that before, the 10%. Previous assessment score, you did mention on the assessment score, I want to be clear about this. It was a 3. You've told us the conditions by which they probably didn't get up and do a better look at that. So I think that was probably not as accurate as it could have been. I do want to tell you, though, that in the future, the vocation building has a surplus status, meaning that the state paid to replace it in the new construction project, but the district chose to keep the old building. With this action, the district chose to take on 100% of the maintenance of the building, except for qualifying 10% monies and 8% monies. Because the building is surplus, the state will not assess it again in the future. So we did do that in the past. We will not do that in the future. We now have it correctly, a correct status code on it. So there will not be any assessments in the future to help you address those issues. You'll have to assess it yourself and prioritize accordingly.
Will that also result in removal of all those other items that were still on that low priority list that are in that building?
You bet. Yeah, they'll be eliminated. They won't show up.
Thank you.
You betcha. Okay, with that then, let's go on to legislative session review. We started adding this last year, and we've it's good. I'm sure you guys are monitoring bills. We're monitoring every single day because we're responsible to give testimony on any that we're asked to, as well as fiscal impacts to the state of Wyoming based on what a bill implements or not. So with that, I'll turn this over for an explanation from Charlie, and we'll kind of go down through this.
Absolutely. So we'll just briefly touch on these bills. There's a few that pertain to your district and school district in general. Let's start with House Bill number 8, the major maintenance multiplier. This is basically looking to increase the current replacement value multiplier in the major maintenance formula from 2 to 2.5%, which will result in an increase of $20 million in fiscal year 2023. This will begin in 2023 as well, and is an increase in additional $600,000 or 3% each year after. So what it looks like if this were to go through, it would increase the major maintenance dollars spread out amongst the districts, which would give you guys a bigger major maintenance payment. Number 2, House Bill 52, Public Works and Contracts. So this bill deals with architects having to write specifications for products that are available by Wyoming resident suppliers. So it will affect major maintenance items or any furniture or fixed furnitures and equipment that the district may look to buy or procure in the future. Number 3, the procurement amendments. So this one, when we were made as an agency a couple years ago, one of the things we were tasked with is trying to standardize procurement across all agencies and across for the state and for the school districts. And so this is this results in that. So basically, we look to do a couple things here. One, it basically adopt capital construction procurement policies and standards and ensure compliance. Excuse me. And then also, many of the values used in the state the statutes were outdated and this bill will bring those values up to current present values. Bonding will go up from its present value up to $50,000. Architect and engineer procurement would also be at $50,000. School district construction also goes up to $50,000, and then all advertising will be minimized, minimal amount of 2 weeks instead of being all over the board. So what this also means for you is that if anything is for major maintenance projects, if anything is under the $25,000 threshold, you can just go out and hire the person directly. If it's between $25,000 and $49,999.99, you have to solicit 3 proposals and get those from either architects or engineers or whatever you're using on that point, or contractors. And anything above $50,000 would be subject to public procurement. So that's how that affects you in major maintenance at this point.
If you have any questions during these, let us know, and hopefully it's of some value to you, but we're just trying to, and again, these are just introduced. Who knows what the final versions will be and if they'll make it all the way through.
Absolutely. So House Bill 78 is education major maintenance funding. This is actually looking to distribute major maintenance payments on a quarterly basis. So instead of having, this past year we had 2 payments, this would increase it to 4. So every quarter you'd get a major maintenance payment. So then number 5, House Bill 79, school finance interfund loans. Basically, this gives us the legislators an opportunity to loan or to make loans in between school reserve accounts and legislation stabilization reserve accounts. Ooh, that's a lot of. Okay. Number 6, House Bill 80. This is our current CAPCON budget that's going through right now. Here, let's see if I have a table of that really quick. So basically what's going through the legislature right now for us is Satellite High School in Rock Springs, the John C. Schiffer Alt School in Sheridan 2, reappropriations for the Shawnee Modular and Converse 1, increased amounts for Laramie Montessori Charter School in Albany School District number 1, and then unanticipated dollars to go with it, with the $4.95 million increase in security projects that we talked about a little bit earlier for security, and then an increase in major maintenance, and then also the inclusion of the lease payment for the past charter school that's located here in Laramie County School District number 1. So that's House Bill 80. We'll try to speed this up a little bit here. House Bill 94, construction contracts, indemnity provisions. They're working that through. I don't really know all the ins and outs of that one, but that one will affect any of the contracts for construction throughout the state. So one to keep an eye on. House Bill 108, the contractor's final payment provisions restructure. It's just modifying final settlement and payment to contractors' procedures and updating bond requirements and basically requiring disputes to be directed to a prime contractor surety bond. Bond.
And that's kind of interesting, Paul, because in the past, I think districts wanted us to get kind of involved in the middle of that, right? Disputes, and it's really between the district and...
Right. We philosophically had a bit of a change with the level of involvement we have. We basically keep our relationship directly with the district, and all of the remaining relationships between districts and their consultants and their contractors, that's basically kept out of our purveyance. The district is the one who is going to be in the future, currently and in the future, held responsible for that relationship. So we will keep our relationship with essentially your sovereign group to our sovereign group, and we won't venture as much outside of that relationship.
Thank you. Thank you. So really quick here, Senate File 49, County Zoning Authority, private schools. It just makes sure that there's no zoning resolution that will restrict the occupancy of a private school.
That's an interesting one, and I don't know, it's more just FYI, but we basically have a private school in Teton County wanting to build on, and you can imagine how hard property is to get in Teton County. That was interesting because the county was requiring all the things that they would require of any other business or something, restrictions and stuff, and they can't get 100 acres in Teton County. So what they're asking for is that private schools, with regard to zoning, get the same privileges as public schools in order to do things on limited sites that they wouldn't normally do as anybody else out there outside of a government agency. So.
Senate File 53, Governments, Contracts, Labor Organization. It just prohibits governmental entities from including specified terms related to labor organizations. Wow, agreements and construction-related contracts. So it'll affect a lot of different contracts. Public records, more for information. The public record shall be delivered within 10 days of if a mutual agreement between the requestee and the agency are not reached. And penalties are up to a felony if agency doesn't deliver. Senate File 64, School Safety and Security, just says WD in consultation with Homeland Security, the AG's office, State Fire Marshal, and our department will create model school safety and security guidelines. And then last but not least, professional service procurement. We'll just say that resident firms will need to have a physical office in Wyoming, and 50% of the contract shall be done with staff or contractors employed in Wyoming. So more of a preferential law, increasing the preference that's currently out there. Ooh, that was a lot to cover.
Are you guys tracking bills pretty closely on the education side?
Yes, we are.
Okay. I'm sure you have your network.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. With that, then, I think we'll go on. Just move that down to the next one. I didn't quite, and I don't know who wrote this, but it's with the proposed increase to major maintenance funds in House Bill 8008. The district's concerned we'll need to start conserving funds in major maintenance repair. Okay, so in the past then, and just let Steve know, I know Paul knows this and you guys know this already, but we have had concern at the legislative level that districts were not spending major maintenance. They had these big, balances. Well, the way we're doing it and the way what we did was we made recommendations through the SFC, and it made it through last year, year before, and there was a 7-year phase in for major maintenance. If it's a brand new building, they were like the first year they'd get 0% major maintenance on it, and next year they'd get like 10% and then 20, and it kind of phased in, and that was taken out of state statute.
Okay.
And the reason is because basically that number one is that it was shown, we hired a consultant, it was shown that you can't phase out 7 years of a major maintenance to 100% major maintenance payments and expect these people to take care of their buildings in the long run. It's just not enough funds if you're expecting them to do asset preservation. So at any rate, that was taken out and is intended for districts. But in the midst of that, in order for districts to save up, get more money, but they need to save up to pay for larger projects, because now they can do that, they got to save money over time, which means they're going to have large balances. If you got a $600,000 roof, you're going to have to save $600,000 over multiple years in order to pay for that. So the district, I think, if I understand you guys, you're concerned about that, and so we recognize that this approach may require larger balances to be held over year to year, and the district noting the reason for this in each facility plan as you go forward is an important part of this process. So district, if you start saving up some big money, for whatever that big project is, just note it in your facility plan in the future, and we'll have that noted as a record. And then every time, and we're very familiar with this issue, every time we're asked about that in a public meeting or on the side with any legislator or governor's office, we're defending and for them to understand that providing more money, allowing you to save up, means you have to save up and you have bigger balances. And then if anybody has a specific question on your district, why does PAR16 have $1.3 million, and look at those low condition scores, we can say, hey, they've noted that in the facility plan, and we can give a specific answer for your district as well as a general answer for all districts in the strategy. Any questions on that?
Nope, thank you. We're just trying to be consistent in that message to everybody that we talk with, including our legislators.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And when you do that, you help us as well. One thing that's changed in the past, we've always had not always, but we've had a capacity list, highest ranking, just like the statewide capacity list we showed you. We had a conditions list with the highest FCI, Facility Condition Index score, top, and then moved down over like 500 buildings in the state for educational, as well as a supplement or an ancillary or support facility list. So that's all changed now. We're not going to be providing those as separate lists unless asked otherwise. The rules and regs were updated just recently, I think, this last fall, early winter. And so from now on then, what this looks like is we actually have a list of priorities across state for all educational buildings that has condition as 50% of the weighting of a score. We have capacity is in that building score at 35%. There's a couple ways of dealing with that, but I'm sure it's going to be a district-wide capacity percentage based on a configuration. Because what happens is, we get it, some school districts, if they have multiple schools, like Laramie one here, Albany, whoever it is, a larger school district, they may have an elementary school, because of boundaries and stuff, they may have an elementary school at 106% capacity, another school's at 78%. Well, we know that districts have freedom to adjust their boundaries as they see best fit, and we're not forcing them all to be at 100%, and so we allow them. But on that weighting and capacity, if we do it building by building, then it may falsely represent by district-wide what the capacity is and available seats within that district as a whole. And then 15% of the weighting is educational suitability. That one's a challenge for us right now. The last educational suitability assessment we had was 2010. It was finished. So we have a list, but the problem is a lot's happened since then. And so it's the most updated list we have, but it doesn't include other new buildings as well and other things. So that's the new rule or law of the land, and that's how prioritization is going to occur unless the legislature puts a bill out there that changes this reality. We're probably going to be asking for money, I would assume, for educational suitability to go out We will apply what we have and put out a list, and then we'll probably ask for money through the legislature to go out, and it's going to take a year or two to do a new educational suitability assessment. We'll be back in your buildings, and if you were around back in the 2008-2009 period, we went across the state and did that suitability assessment, but we'll be back in for another assessment, and it'll be directly related to educational suitability. Any questions on that?
Nope, we're good.
Okay, last thing. We always give districts the opportunity before we close out our meeting here for unique issues, ideas, concerns. And it does look like you did write something. We are concerned that the items that have been approved in the past under major maintenance, this has to do with you project managers, are now being denied due to interpretation that it is not major. So district, why don't you give us an example of that perhaps in your district, or if you've heard somewhere else? We don't need one, but do you have an example of what that may look like, or do you want the PMs just to reply to what you put there?
We did visit with John and Steve last week, and I think we have a little clearer understanding of what we need to do going forward.
Okay, anything else, district, that you'd like to mention before we close out our facility plan meeting with you this year?
I don't have anything.
I don't either.
Thank you.
You bet. Staff, anything else before we close out?
No, nothing else.
Okay, with that, thanks a lot. We'll send this over for Shane for your superintendent's signature there, and thank you so much, and enjoy the rest of your week.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks for your help, Amber.
You're very welcome. Thank you guys for your hard work.
She's wonderful. We recognize that.
There he is.
All right, take care.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.